I talked about all those issues. I focused on grocery. I focused on the fact that working class people can no longer afford to live in this country. I talked about inflation, all the issues that deeply concern you and that you've devoted your career to alleviating those issues. 5 minutes into my speech, when I was talking about Paul Revere, YouTube deplatformed me. I didn't talk about vaccines in that speech. I didn't talk about anything that was a verboten subject. I just was talking about my campaign and things, the conversation that we ought to be having with each other as Americans. But I was shut down, and that is why the First Amendment's important. Debate, congenial, respectful debate.
Welcome back. What we witnessed in that hearing room wasn't just a political debate. It was an absolute assault on the First Amendment orchestrated by the Washington establishment. The radical left has become so terrified of dissenting voices and unconventional alliances that they are willing to completely abandon the rules of fair play just to shut down the conversation. Watch closely as House Democrats try everything in their power to censor Robert F. Kennedy Jr. during a committee ironically designed to investigate government weaponization. They don't want to debate his ideas, they don't want to look at his data, and they certainly don't want him exposing the truth about corporate and bureaucratic capture. So what do? They rely on the oldest trick in the playbook: character assassination, loaded smears, and out-of-context sound bites. But RFK Jr. did exactly what a true defender of liberty is supposed to do. He refused to back down. He called out the hypocrisy to their faces, and he showed the American people exactly what modern government censorship looks like. This matters to every single conservative, because if they can do this to a Kennedy on Capitol Hill, they can do it to any everyday American citizen. If you want honest conservative analysis without the mainstream media spin, subscribe and turn on notifications right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could put 5 minutes on the clock then, not 10.
Could we put 5 on the clock and we'll start it running?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to put aside my written statement for a moment and address one of the points that was brought up, I think an important point by the ranking member, that this body ought to be concerning itself with issues that impact directly the American people. The rising price of groceries, 76% over the past 2 years for basic foodstuff, the war in Ukraine, the inflation issues, the border issues, many other issues that concern us all as a nation. We can't do that without the First Amendment, without debate. When I gave my speech, my announcement speech in Boston 2 months ago, YouTube, I talked about all those issues. I focused on grocery. I focused on the fact that working class people can no longer afford to live in this country. I talked about inflation, all the issues that deeply concern you and that you've devoted your career to alleviating those issues. 5 minutes into my speech, when I was talking about Paul Revere, YouTube deplatformed me. I didn't talk about vaccines in that speech. I didn't talk about anything that was a verboten subject. I just was talking about my campaign and things, the conversation that we ought to be having with each other as Americans. But I was shut down, and that is why the First Amendment's important. Debate, congenial, respectful debate is the fertilizer, it's the water, it's the sunlight for our democracy. We need to be talking to each other. Now, this is a letter that many of you signed, many of my fellow Democrats. I've spent my life in this party. I've devoted my life to the values of this party. 102 people signed this. This itself is evidence of the problem that this hearing was convened to address. This is an attempt to censor a censorship hearing. The charges in this, and by the way, censorship is antithetical to our party. It was appalling to my father to my uncle, to FDR, to Harry Truman, to Thomas Jefferson, as the chairman referred to. It is the basis for democracy. It sets us apart from all of the previous forms of government. We need to be able to talk, and the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for. And I was censored not just by the Democratic administration, I was censored by the Trump administration. I was the first person censored by as the chairman pointed out, by the Biden administration 2 days after it came into office. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. And by the way, I want to say this while I'm on the record, that in my entire life, and why I'm under oath.
Welcome back. There is perhaps nothing more revealing in modern politics than watching the left completely lose their minds when a leader refuses to read from their approved script. What Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just did to the committee Democrats wasn't just the defense of his own character, it was a devastating exposure of the total moral bankruptcy of the establishment. Let's break down the sheer hypocrisy of what took place. Delegate Stacey Plaskett and her colleagues literally tried to initiate a vote to censor a witness at a hearing about censorship. You literally cannot make this stuff up. RFK Jr. caught them red-handed and dropped the ultimate reality check right out of the gate. He didn't let them hide behind polite procedural games. He made it clear to the entire country that the modern Democratic Party is no longer the party of free speech or classic liberalism. They are the party of narrative control. When RFK Jr. looked at the panel and boldly stated that every single charge of racism and anti-Semitism leveled against him was a fabricated lie, he drew a line in the sand. For years, conservatives have watched the mainstream media and weaponized government agencies use these exact same smear tactics to destroy political opponents. They take a phrase, strip away context, broadcast it across a dozen corporate networks, and use it as a weapon to deplatform dissenters. But RFK Jr. did something brilliant here that every conservative commentator should study. He didn't apologize. He didn't cower. He relied on his actual track record, his family's historical commitment to civil rights, and a calm, unyielding delivery that made his accusers look incredibly small, petty, and partisan. From a policy and constitutional standpoint, the implications of this exchange are massive. RFK Jr.'s defense highlights a terrifying reality. Our federal government has actively colluded with social media giants and legacy press to suppress information that doesn't align with state-sponsored narratives. This isn't a conspiracy theory anymore. It's an established fact being played out on the congressional record. Politically, this is exactly why so many Republicans and independent populists have rallied behind RFK Jr. within the broader America First coalition. He represents a bridge for millions of Americans who are waking up to the reality of institutional corruption. By standing firm against the weaponized state, he isn't just defending himself, he's defending the foundational right of every American to speak, question, and challenge authority. Ultimately, the left's ambush completely backfired. They wanted to create a viral gotcha moment to discredit a political threat. Instead, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. turned the tables, exposed the censorious nature of the deep state, and delivered a defining win for the free speech movement.